guys, old man Chris back again. Some people who've seen it will know about this tool post cross drilling jig that my friend Terry made for me. Absolutely love it. Very useful device. And when was it? Time goes so quick. He made another visit not long ago and he bought me something else, which is what this video is about primarily. I'll let the video do the talking so you can see what it's about, but suffice it to say that I was absolutely thrilled with it. I'm not exaggerating. I sort of wish I'd made it myself, because if I had, I'd be damn pleased. But Terry did a wonderful job on it. I'm just blown away, to be honest. So that's what this is about. I'll sum up at the end, and hopefully most of the details are explained. And the very beginning is just a device I got from dear old eBay, which, as I mentioned in the clip, I think Jody of Welding Tips and Tricks showed in one of his videos. I thought it was very useful to have, just on hand for occasional use when you're trying to cut chunks off a long piece of material. Alright, let's get on. See you at the end. Okay. Here's something I thought might come in handy now and again. Occasional use. Jody, Welding Tips and Tricks, showed one. I think it was one of his buddies who was using it, and I thought, damn, that's useful. Seeing as you haven't always got a vise where you need it. Now the funny thing was, this was on eBay significantly less cost than most of the other adverts. And the picture showed one that was used. It was like, you know, the paint marked up and such like. So I ordered it, and this came through, and it's basically brand new. It's about 20 bucks, I think. Pretty solid, 3/16 thick. And the idea, I haven't got a really long piece of tube or anything to show you. That's sort of the principle of it. Let me trying to get it so you can see it sideways on. So you put this on the floor, put your piece of tube or something bigger through any hole that's convenient, put your foot on the end and get your grinding cutting disc on here, so it'll hold your work to take a slice. I think it's pretty darn useful. So it's it's another of those things that's just useful to have. I won't show it on my floor because my floor's a mess. Now, here's something rather special. My friend Terry, again, who made the tool post cross drilling jig, which I should be using soon, again. He's made this ram assembly for doing internal keyways in the lathe. The funny thing was, when he brought the cross drilling jig, we were talking about stuff, and I'd mentioned that I was going to try and make something up for this purpose, and he basically said, well, I'll make one. And he did, and here it is. Absolutely brilliant. There's a heck of a lot of work in it. You might notice this. I'll look at it. I'm going to disassemble it in a minute and show you all the parts. He's rounded this a little bit so that he also provided me with this quite large cheetah bar, which may or may not be needed, I'm not sure yet. So what has to be done yet to commission it, and this is, I'll show you later on. I've got to bore this out for 1/2 inch to take a tool holder. This may have to be done rather carefully. This is 01 tool steel, apparently, Terry said, and the barrel body here is, oh, what did he say, 12L 14? Trying to remember now. But I need to show you all the parts so you can see how much work was put in. When I've made the bore on here, I'm going to make a 1/2 inch tool holder. I've actually got a 1/4 inch broach I'm going to try out if I can just about get enough movement in the little arbor press to save using the big press. So I'm going to take this apart and show you the bits. Now, let me come in just a little closer. Now, Terry put in some spare holes. We've got a spare hole here on this fork. We've got 2 on the operating lever, and this is the setup at the moment, which I think is probably about the optimum. This clamp here is a limiting stop for the throw. So if it's back here, the throw is about, I think, 2.5, something like that. Pretty generous. So let me show you all the bits. Let me give you a rundown of the components, just to give you some idea. Some of the dimensions are not super critical in some respects, although Terry actually, he said he had these shoulder bolts. I don't know whether these will show. These very nice shoulder bolts. These 2 here are 1.5 inch, I think. Sorry, 1.125 I'm talking about. 1.125, and these are 1.375. Perfect for the job. So that would have helped determine some of the dimensions. Let's start with what I call the barrel. So this was a piece of 1 3/4, and that has been bored out to 3/4 for this 01 tool steel ram. The ram, while we're on it, is 8 inch. There's a 1/4 inch Keyway being machined in here. It's about 3.5 inches long, about 1 inch from the end. This other end has been milled both sides. I dare not get too close in case the focus doesn't hold. Can you see that? That's been machined there to 1/2 inch. And that 1/2 inch, I'll come back to the barrel in a minute. That 1/2 inch goes into this very nice piece. Like that. Alright, we'll put it back together in a minute. And the other side here goes onto the operating lever. Which, incidentally, I'm going from one thing to another. This is a piece of 3/4 by 1/2. Actually a piece that I donated to Terry, and he's used 12 inches of it for me. What else? This has been milled to, that's been milled out to 1/2 inch both sides. Okay, this connecting link here, which goes from here to here, that is also out of 3/4 by 1/2. That end is 1/2 inch clearance for the lever, this end also 1/2 inch, and this very nice piece here on the barrel, that's been machined to give both fixing to the barrel with these cap screws, and then this pillar, that's machined to 1/2 inch, and that way is 3/4, and then this side of the barrel is another piece of Terry must have used all the 1/2 by 3/4 I gave him, and that is bolted to the barrel with cap screws. Alright, the 2 holes on top here, which are just closed off by a couple of screws and grommets, they are for oiling. Arguably with this sort of thing you could say, oh, we need brass bushings. I don't think it's necessary, and I agree with Terry, he's gone just the right route, perfectly adequate, plenty of way to get oil in here. The stop collar, that was a pre-made, which is nice and convenient. These shoulder bolts, by the way, they're 1040. Oh God, let me get it right. I'm always quoting thread sizes wrong. 1024s, all right, 1024s. And on the other end, he's got a washer, spring washer, and a nut. And then this piece, this is, gosh, I didn't check this, that's a 5/16 cap screw, and Terry's turned the end down there to 1/4 so that it acts in the keyway here to act as a guide. Alright, so I think I've covered most. Anybody who wants further info later can get in touch with me, and I'll add some data if needed. In here, incidentally, that's been taken out to 1.5 inches. This end here, that's out to nominal inch. What else have I forgotten here? I'm going to put it back together so you can see it with everything working, and then I must go to the lathe, make a tool holder, and we've got to bore this out. All the shoulder bolts are back. The other side, you can probably see we've just got, as I said before, plain washer, spring washer, and this has got jam nuts on. They don't have to be done up very tight. Same there. And the guide pin for the keyway, that's back in place. And there we are, smooth as you like. Smooth as you like. Some of the geometry here could be varied slightly. I haven't tried the other holes on here because, as I said before, I think this is probably pretty much an optimum. And this one would probably give a little more leverage. No, I'm trying to think. Anyway, I may experiment with those later. I've got to take this apart one more time to get the ram, take out the ram, and bore the end. But the next thing I think is I'm going to try and make the tool holder. I want a 1/4 inch cross hole in here, so I'm going to use Terry's cross drill jig, and so here we go. little bit slower than it might have been because we're having to use the advance lacrosse slide, which is a bit slow, but the result gets you there. And that whole 1/4 inch, we got to convert that to a square with the broach, which may be a bit of fun. I'm not sure how we're going to be able to set it up yet, but we must put a thread in the end here for a set screw. That's next. I've centre drilled. I'm just starting to put a 1364 down here. I didn't mention at the time, but when I was cross drilling I had the chuck locked up because I had the back gear in but not engaged, which locks it, and the carriage was locked as well. Right, I think I'll put a tiny 1/4 start there and then I can thread it. I made a start with the number 1, and that's just putting a bottoming through. And that should allow me to get a set screw in. Let's see if we're good. It looks okay. I'll leave it out for now because we're going to have to try and broach this. I've cut the tool holder to about a 3-inch length, which would give me, I think, about 1.5 inches of cut if I should need that much. And I might have to make other holders for different purposes. Okay, and we'll try some broaching. Well, my pissant little arbor press is not really ideal for the job. Not enough control. So I'm going this way, which is a lot slower. I'm set up in a small vise so I can support the end of the tool holder, and just take it slowly. When you realise that the core of this thing is so thin, so thin. I did notice actually as this started it rotated very, very slightly. It doesn't really matter, it means the tool grind will have to be compensated. Now I'm going to go a little bit more. Got to find some more packing material. Carry on. Love the music. Well, it's still intact. It's a relief. I just used a little piece of rod, only needed a fraction and it fell through, so we're good. Well, we've got the square broached out. It was actually just a shade tight for some 1/4 inch tool steel. I ran a quick pass through with needle file. It's a bit tight. Well, I think that'll work because the other alternative, of course, is to stone the tool steel just slightly. I think we're only talking about an odd 1/10 or 2, so it works anyway. I probably can't get very close without losing focus, but I mean, that's all it is. I have today ordered some Green Bay Manufacturing Company. I ordered some sleeves today, 1/4 3/8, 1/4 5/16 and 3/8. They're made out of 12L14 and obviously, you know, softish. About $8 each, I think, which didn't seem too bad, so it might save me a bit of broaching in future, seeing as I've only got the 1/4 inch broach. Anyway, let's get this ram out and see if we can bore it. I'm going to run a pilot up. Don't want to take any great liberties with this material, so I'm going to take it slow. Now I'll just take a 31/64 and then we'll try and ream it. And it's fairly slow going. It should be alright for depth there. The only 1/2 inch chucking reamer I've got is a very stubby one. See, this is very old. Let's see what we can do with it. Try there. Well, let's see if that's enough. Having reamed that, it's pretty tight. So I've got a drill there for a set screw. I might even drill for 2 actually, because I've only got 1/8 there. But this is, of course, I'm getting piston effect as well. It's a little bit reluctant to go all the way. Although that chucking reamer seemed to measure okay, it may be just a bit worn. I've got this one on a Morse. I've just put that in, which I think has relieved an absolute smidgen. Now we're going in, but I've got piston effect. See that? That's just about it actually. So I probably won't have to polish that. And bear in mind this has to have a flat milled on it. So the only thing left on this ram is set screw or screws. So I might use 2. I'll do the other one. Get a tapping drill through. Now let's put a little touch of quarter. That one's done. This is just the absolute minimum. Right, now set about tapping. I tend to get my hands in the way doing this. Okay, I think that's done. I'll just have to run the reamer up here just to clean the burrs out. Check and double check. How many times have I failed to do that? It's a reasonably generous flat, and the set screws can go in quite a way. So we'll see how we get on with that. We're almost ready to test it out. I'll have to grind a new tool, and the next thing when I get back out in the shop is do some test cuts. To save prepping any material or boring anything out, I just put this small piece of tube in. But I tell you what, this is hard. Very, very hard, and it's not the best thing to use. And I'm not sure whether I've got a perfect grind on my tool here. It's very hard to get cuts. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put a piece of aluminum in. I've only just started a cut on here. Let's see if I can get close in. I've no idea whether you can see. That's the beginning of the cut. Let me come up again. Just lock the carriage. I've moved things there. No. Let's put a piece of aluminum in. Now this is more like it. If this was a piece of regular CRS, we'd be okay. I say that tube, I don't know what it was. Anyway, you might see that I'm beginning to start a cut. Taking about a thou each pass. Now that I haven't set up for measurement. That's an eighth keyway, and obviously we'd only want to go down to a 16th, and that's getting close. But I think you can see that's working pretty good. So I'm very happy with that. My tool grind possibly isn't quite perfect. I know I'm getting an 1/8 cut, but yeah, that's probably pretty close actually. So for demo purposes, I think we're okay. That'll give you a better idea of. Let's just get back in there. I'm probably going to go too deep here. I'm not worried about it. It's only a demo. There you are. I've got the I've had the cheetah bar on. I could manage without it, but it makes for a better feel. So there we are, guys. Terry has really excelled himself on this. There's a lot of machining. Oh no, he said. Oh yes, I said. There's a heck of a lot to do. I'll put this back on the bench in a minute just to round it off. So just to wrap this up, we that bit in the lathe, I had the stop collar there. I was making about 3/4 inch into the workpiece, and we've got 2 set screws there. One of them stops this fractionally short of the end of the keyway slot here, not really enough to matter. The tool holder, that's just made out of regular material. I'm not sure what it was, but it wasn't super hard. That really should be made out of 4140. There may be a little bit of spring in it, although I suspect not enough to really matter. On the aluminum, the cut is just sweet as sweet. And there we are. Isn't it nice to have a friend who makes things for you? Particularly something as complex as this. And I say complex because there are so many parts. This piece, lots of milling, slot, slot. Another piece, milling, slot, slot. And this was tailored to the shoulder bolts, so it's pretty darn accurate. And the action of it is very pleasant to use. I like that. There we are, guys. Hopefully enough of a demo. I shouldn't have chosen the that piece of tubing. It's ridiculously hard. And I did notice that the tool post, even when locked up, could just move slightly because of the pressure involved. I think a special tool grind would probably be needed for that. And I don't suppose that I would go up much bigger than an 1/8. I'll probably make a tool for 16th, I expect. I say that one, which I don't know whether I've no idea if focus is going to hold, but that's made for 8th and 16th, probably the sizes I'd want to do. Guys, this is a sort of last minute addition. Seeing I thought about the process, having demoed it. My mention on one of the caption texts about inattention was actually two aspects to it. One was I wasn't really paying attention to get the full stroke, and secondly, if the stroke is not 100% every time, you get a bit of build up at the end of the keyway. I think that's something that was bothering Terry actually. If the stroke is complete every time and the cut is small, then the build up at the end of the keyway tends to go outwards. It gradually builds up outwards. If it was a through keyway, say it was a pulley and you were wanting to get a keyway in the boss, you could go straight through, maybe inch and a quarter, so all your chips would come out the end. I thought I'd just mention that. Some people might well have thought about it. For an external keyway, which is equally feasible with this device, you can drill a small pilot hole right at the end of the keyway, so there's somewhere for the chips to escape, and that would be pretty straightforward. Okay, so that's all. I thought I'd mention that and throw this in and re-encode the video, because it seemed incomplete if I didn't mention it. It's a surmountable problem, and I think if the tool grind is better, instead of the tool being slight negative relief going into the tube, right, there's your tube, if the grind has a little bit more concavity without being excessive, particularly near the tip, so that if the cut is small and you don't get too much of a dig, you might get a little bit of a curl. Right, that's the idea. Possibly. I got to experiment. Some people may have overcome the problem anyway, but there you are. That's just a little bit of tidying up and clarification, hopefully. Right, now you can go on to my wrap-up. There you go. And it's still in the machine. I'm still playing with it. I hope you enjoyed that. I tried to rather quickly go through the basic dimensions and parts, because I think it's a design that's well worth copying. It's similar to one other that I've seen, but Terry's version is just great. I can't really fault it. I did try, as you may have seen, I tried cutting into some very, very tough tube, and that was just ridiculous. I don't know what material it is. I thought, oh, that's convenient, bit of tube, let's give it a try. But it was hard going. It was very hard to keep the tool post locked up, and I very much doubt I'll be cutting a keyway in something like that. The aluminum a lot easier, and regular cold rolled I don't think it'd be a problem. 4140 probably be alright, but that's not as hard as that damn piece of tube. Alright, there we go. That's another one in the can. This time I'll say my usual. I've no idea what's next. So I really haven't. I got on with this one fairly quickly, so I've got a bit of breathing space before I decide what's next. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to all my subscribers, who are greatly appreciated, and hope to see you soon. Okay, thanks for watching.